Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday night, August the 14th. It's excellent to have you in for another episode of the Prime Time program. We had joint training camp practices with the Seattle Seahawks today on tap, and a lot of good work that this team was able to get in. So we'll go through the latest, we'll go through the details, we'll talk about it together. We will look forward to your feedback, what you were looking to learn, what you might have learned, what you heard, what you saw, what you read about that intrigues you from this team's on-field practices with the Seahawks in the first and only joint training camp work for both teams of the year. We're happy to have you. As I mentioned, thanks for jumping in. We're going to get into joint camp observations, talk specifically about pass rush stuff, given that Matt Judon got traded today, and it was not to the Tennessee Titans the way that I had hoped to manifest into existence for you. We got rising and falling at the end of the show for a little stock up and stock down. Should be a lot of fun ahead for the next half hour or so. Before we get started, need you guys to share the show around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you are live streaming this show. Thank you for doing so. But we always enjoy when you invite more of your friends to come hang out here with us. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet it in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I'll do it myself right now. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public, like Katie Maurice Clemens and so many others of you on Facebook. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, like Jonathan Hernandez or Richie or Lewis, who I see in the comment section on YouTube and Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel while you are there. Curtis C says, joint, baby, joint. That's right, joint camps. Puff, puff, pass for all your Titans, Seahawks practice observations and needs. We've got you covered. So let's go ahead and get into it as more of you guys trickle in here. We'll look forward to your feedback, but we need to get started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, and get in on all the action that Zen Sports does provide. Betting just got better at zensports.com. Of course, you know that the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, have you covered. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com, and TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, go to truemathfitness.com for all of the information that you need to get your fitness journey started today. So, Titans and Seahawks live joint practice reaction is what we are going to get into, because there was a ton of work that went down today. It was the first day of joint training camp practices, always the most competitive, always the most heated. We did see a little bit of pushing and shoving, but for the most part, both teams kept a lid on their emotions and were able to get good work in. Now, this is something that I had heard talking to a couple of people around the NFL, that the league was going to heavily scrutinize, not just Titans and Seahawks joint training camp practices, but Browns and Vikings, all other manner of joint camp work that's going on around the league. Because if you paid attention to what was going on last week, you saw the Giants and the Lions get into it pretty heavily. You saw a lot of different teams around the NFL getting into it inter squad style. It has been pretty contentious league-wide, or at least the optics of training camp fights have been pretty bad. So the NFL had representatives out there today to basically preside over everything that was going down on the practice field and make sure that both teams knew that the league had a presence out there that would come with a $200,000 fine if they took it too far. So they got through that initially, and then, of course, the joint work began. So you had both teams stretching on their own, doing their own individual drills. Then from our vantage point, because, of course, we're doing the radio show out there. By the way, Will Levis is on the radio show tomorrow. He is bringing the cologne, apparently, to the radio setup. We will ask him many things, including why the hell he chooses to smell like mayonnaise. But Will Levis will be on the radio show tomorrow after the second day of Titans-Seahawks joint training camp practices. So we'll look forward to that. So from my vantage point, I specifically was in front of the offense, the Titans offense versus the Seahawks defense. And they had Seahawks offense versus Titans defense on the far field, which was outside of my view. So for me specifically, I only could watch the offense because we're sitting there. Radio show starts at 10. Joint training camp practices the past 2 days, or today and tomorrow will start at 10. So we're kind of stationary for that one spot, even though I've got 7-minute commercial breaks essentially to work around a little bit. Can't get all the way around to the far third field where the Seahawks offense and Titans defensive units were squaring off. So for me, it was specifically Titans O versus Seahawks D today. And then there was a lot of good 7-on-7 periods. You had special teams periods with field goals. You had punting drills. You had team periods with a specific focus on second and third downs. And then they did a move the ball unscripted period that took place on both fields. And of course, my vantage point was the offense. So there were no injuries of great significance today, though two things did happen. Traylon Burks dealt with cramps, and J.C. Latham also dealt with cramps. It was hotter today than it has been. We were later in the day for practice than the Titans had been practicing in this August Middle Tennessee heat. Not been the hottest August in Middle Tennessee so far. In fact, training camp has been, dare I say, pleasant. So cramps during camp have not been terribly prevalent. And as I said, I spent the vast majority of my time watching the Titans on offense. Levis had a solid day, though the offense took a little while to ramp up. I think you would probably give credit to the Seahawks defense over the Titans offense today, though you did see Levis, Mason Rudolph, even Malik Willis towards the end. As the heat wore down on everybody, you saw the offense start to break through. You saw a few more explosive plays. You saw a couple of nice gains in the rushing attack. Levis was accurate, took a couple of shots on deep balls that ultimately they were not able to work through, specifically with Calvin Ridley. And then they started to work more shorter to intermediate level stuff where they were having more success, where the ball was coming out quickly, much better at that point. Richie says, need to smell like Super Bowls, not like mayonnaise, of Will Levis. Fun fact for Buck, Andrew Rupchich's last name is pronounced Rupsich, not Rupchich. It irks me every time you say his last name. Okay, well, life will go on. Of all the things to be irked by that I've said over the course of the last, how long have I been doing this? 8 years. The fact that the thing that's got you most bent is Rupsich over Rupchich. I'm going to, we'll try and get Andrew Rupchich's name right if that is in fact the correct pronunciation. In fact, I have a roster handy somewhere that actually has the pronunciation guide. So I don't know that that's entirely true, but either way, you're going to be all right. As Curtis C. said, Paul Kaharski said the mayo smell got stronger the longer he had it on. Oh, he put the mayonnaise cologne on. I don't think I'm going to put the mayonnaise cologne on when Levis does the radio show tomorrow. I'm really not interested in smelling like mayonnaise. Ashley Farrell, who works with Coach Dave McGinnis and Mike Keith on the Titans radio video production side of things, had it on. She held her wrist up for me to catch a whiff, and I was not terribly pleased with the mayonnaise cologne. So we will move on from that. Caleb Meadows says, was Levis as bad today as some media led us to believe? Well, I don't know what media you're reading, and I don't know what their commentary specific of Levis was, but I wouldn't say that Levis was objectively bad, but I would say that the Seahawks defense got the better of them, and it was definitively Calvin Ridley's worst day of practice. I can say that first and foremost. But we'll start with your Two Rivers Ford take on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. In the comment section, what was the thing you learned from Titans-Seahawks day one? You could have read it in Jimmy Wyatt's observations. You could have seen it in Teron Davenport's recap of practice. You could have seen video clips that the team or any one of us put out. What did you learn today from Titans-Seahawks joint training camp practice? What was one thing you learned from Titans-Seahawks joint training camp practice? We'll get into it together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is presented, as is your Two Rivers Ford take, by the South's most trusted Ford dealer and your Ford Bronco headquarters. That's Two Rivers Ford. quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service, and a non-commissioned sales team that's there to help you throughout the course of the car buying process to make it fast, easy, and fun. Two Rivers Ford is your Ford Bronco headquarters for a reason, because they are there to help you get informed, get educated, test drive any number of their new or certified pre-owned vehicles at your disposal, as well as all manner of different Ford Bronco options that they have on deck. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, just 7 miles east of Nashville International Airport, or online at tworiversford.com, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Okay, so what was the thing that you learned out of Titans-Seahawks joint training camp practices? Yogi Hertz says we need a quarterback. Interesting. So, again, I didn't see specifically what some of you had alluded to or referenced, the idea that some people, I guess, in Titans media were describing Will Levis's performance as poor. Again, I can't speak for that. I didn't see that myself. From my vantage point, I didn't think he himself was poor. I thought the defensive backs of the Seahawks against the wide receivers, including Calvin Ridley, who's been absolutely the star of the show prior to today, I thought the Seahawks defensive backs held up well in coverage. I thought their defense was very quick to snuff out the run early on. I thought the Seahawks defense faded down the stretch, and you saw more substantive gains from the offense as that practice wore on from all three units. And I thought Levis completed a fair amount of, I think, let me see what Jimmy Wyatt had him tracked out, because I don't track his completions the way that Wyatt does practice to practice. Jimmy has Levis at 15 of 22 in team periods. He was 4 of 5 in the 7-on-7 work. So 19 of 27. Again, didn't connect on a lot of the deep balls that he was looking for, but they definitely worked the intermediate and short ranges of the field for some explosive gains. For example, Jaquan Jackson took a slant route, a slant and go, took off, and I think it was like a 70-yard. It ended up being like a 70-yard completion after the catch and run. So you will hear from him here in just a second. But from what I learned today specifically, I learned that Calvin Ridley, though he is excellent, is not unguardable, because I thought Reek Woolen, number 27 for Seattle, who is a giant of a man at 6'4", very rangy, very long, very Jalen Ramsey-esque in his traits. One of their outside corners, one of their excellent outside corners, and I think Mike McDonald's about to make him a hell of a lot better in that Baltimore Ravens defense that's coming over to the Seahawks. Gave Calvin Ridley a tough time today. Ridley wasn't held without a catch. He did make a couple of catches, but for the most part, it was Calvin Ridley's worst practice as a Titan, at least in terms of what he was able to produce.
Not that good today. Could be a little better, man. Just finishing the routes. Just that could be better.
What happened? Talk us through the two deep balls. It looked like you were twisted up a little bit.
Yeah, I got past the guy, but I'm like, I don't know. My energy, man, it wasn't there a little bit. I just wasn't finishing, running hard enough, and then the ball was come out, and then I'm like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, damn, it's out there. So, but I just got to run full speed the whole time.
Does there need to be a point where you and Will officially have it down?
Nah, man, we got it down, man. We got it down. We just got to run. We got it down. I promise we got it down.
You talked in the past about having fast days, having slow days.
Yeah, exactly.
Why that happens?
Man, you sold some days, man. We come out here, I run every day fast, man. It's not about being sore every day, but like I said, we got this. I just got to run and get there. It's literally right there. So, a little bit more screen. That's really it.
That's a pretty talented secondary. Just to have the opportunity to go against them, as competitive as it was, what can that do for you and this whole offense?
Just make us better, man. The whole offense. They got a good front. They were bringing pressure. The guys on the outside are pretty good. They're physical. The guys talk. So it was great for us to go against, other than our defense. But go against that was pretty good.
You learn anything?
So that's Calvin Ridley speaking with the media earlier today. A to Z Sports Prime Time is presented by the fine folks at True Math Fitness in the Gulch. Go to truemathfitness.com for your first workout free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. True Math Fitness has you covered with the best workout in Middle Tennessee. So, Calvin Ridley, not his best day. and kind of, backing us media who's asking him, and specifically I heard Kaharski's question there about, does there have to be a certain point where you and Will Levis have it down? And Ridley is expressing, yeah, man, it just wasn't our best day. We promise we have this down. Practice is for learning, even if it doesn't look great every day. And today it did not look great, specifically the deep connection. I thought that it was significantly more competitive as the day wore on for the Titans offense. And I think that's really all you can ask. Like, would you like them to come out sharp and beat the brakes off everybody right out of the gates? Sure, but that would ignore a lot of important facts about this team, that they are not any kind of world beaters yet, or have at least not proven themselves to be any kind of world beaters yet. And the Seattle Seahawks are a playoff team from last year. This is a significantly better roster than the Titans have been. We are seeing how the Titans' newly constructed look, because these two teams did play last year, the Seahawks and the Titans. And obviously, Tennessee is significantly different than the last time they saw Seattle. And Seattle's starting safety tandem now plays for Tennessee. So a lot of stuff can turn over in a year, but there is still the opportunity to kind of test your mettle against a team that is theoretically ahead of you. The Seahawks have competed and do continually compete for playoff position in the NFC West, which is, I don't know, would you argue it's the second hardest division in football after the AFC North? I think the AFC West is impossible just because Patrick Mahomes reigns atop of it, like some kind of dragon lord in House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones or something like that, right? He is the fire-breathing dragon, and it's tough to get by him. But the rest of the division, for the most part, those teams are less than. It's top heavy, right? The AFC North and the NFC West have been consistently the two best divisions in football. AFC South should be competitive. Whether or not they will be among the best divisions in the sport is a different matter entirely. So I would say that, what I learned specifically today is that it's good for these Titans receivers to see some different looks, to see a different defense. It's got some similarities to what Denard Wilson is throwing at them, but it is not one for one, given that Denard Wilson used to coach for the Baltimore Ravens, which is where Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator prior to him coming over to Seattle and taking that head coaching job. You're going to hear from Denard Wilson, as a matter of fact, because he was on the radio show today, and he was excellent. We're going to get to that interview here in just a second. I do want to ask you guys this question, though, because we saw some pass rush movement on the open market today. You saw Matt Judon, a player who I've been advocating for the Titans to trade for, go from the New England Patriots to the Atlanta Falcons. So a piece off the board, the most viable piece off the board, I thought, to fix this pass rush, now is no longer available to the Titans. And the question that I want to ask you is this: on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, if you want to get involved, what is the Titans' best available pass rush option now that Matt Judon is no longer available via trade? Yogi says Calvin is going to get tired of taking the blame for Willie Mayonnaise. So safe to say that Yogi isn't sold on Will Levis, because I've seen a couple of critical comments from Yogi about Will Levis. And I don't think, I think that it is incumbent upon, I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent, right, Yogi, if Will Levis is going to hit. I know that he's got talent, but talent doesn't mean that he's a good quarterback. It means he's a talented quarterback, doesn't mean that he's good at playing the position of quarterback. Yet, the idea that he is, a sunk cost, don't think that's true. Don't think you can make that determination after the sample size that we've seen. But I don't think you need much more of a sample size, and you're going to get, right, Will Levis all year, theoretically, is provided that he's healthy behind a much better offensive line. So I think that it's premature to be out on Levis, but I don't fault you for being skeptical, because there is a lot of it's kind of like the mayonnaise commercial, the thing that I talked about last night, right? He's a bit of a novelty, but at some point he needs to cease being more novelty than quarterback, and that's what this whole year is about. So we find out a lot we find out a lot about Will Levis this year, and we will see whether or not that is fair criticism at this point. So, what's the Titans' best available pass rush option? I see Corey D. Jackson says, I can see us kicking the wheels on Yannick. He means Yannick Ngakoue. Bryce Erickson says of Yannick Ngakoue, he wants too much money, double digits. Oh, talking about Hassan Reddick, rather. Because Hassan Reddick is trying to force his way out of the Jets. The Jets have said that they will not trade him. Curtis C. goes with Ngakoue or another former Raven, Tyus Bowser, even though Ngakoue was most recently a Bear. Reddick from Philly, maybe he can, maybe Rand can finesse them back after so many years of the Eagles getting the better of you in trade discussions. Although, I think the Eagles, didn't the Eagles trade DGB or trade for DGB in that Dennis Kelly deal? Didn't Dennis Kelly get acquired for Dorial Green Beckham, and that just completely blew up, of course, in everybody's face? DGB was not long for the NFL. Pierre-Paul says David Tierbeck. I don't think Jason Pierre-Paul is still playing football, though. I know he was in it more recently than some of us might realize. Fade says, I don't want Reddick, who wants to trade, talking about it. Yeah, he just got traded from the Eagles to the Jets in April, and now he's already holding out, or he's been holding out. He hasn't played football for the Jets and saying he won't play football for the Jets until he gets another contract and wants to be traded again. So that situation seems a bit hairy. I don't know Hassan Reddick's perspective. I don't know his side of the discussion. I know that at least optics are suspect at bare minimum. But the Titans pass rush desperately needs help. And we had Denard Wilson on the radio show today. I asked Denard Wilson about Jalen Harrell, and Greg Cosell was also a part of this interview. It was really, really good, smart football conversation because Greg flew in from Philadelphia yesterday, and he's going to he was out there at joint training camp practices today, and he will be out there tomorrow as well to take in the sights and sounds and bring them back for the radio show. But we were talking about Jalen Harrell specifically, the 7th-round pick out of Michigan, because right now the Titans don't have a ton of options on the roster, and Arden Key is still not technically suspended yet, so they're kind of just standing pat until they have some movement on Arden at this point. This is Denard Wilson talking about Jalen Harrell.
A lot of hand-wringing, at least externally, about the edge rush situation and what may be pending with Arden as they work through the appeals process on that. But Jalen Harrell getting a lot of work for you guys in not just practice, but the preseason game as well. What about his skill set might help him contribute for you guys immediately as you look to determine what your options might be?
Well, first of all, he's very smart. To be a rookie, he picks up things and he executes at a high level. All right. Obviously, there was an approach-style system in Michigan. The thing with him is he's physical on contact. He's really learning how to become a pass rusher. You see him out at practice. He wins the one-on-ones. He had a couple one-on-ones he won a day. I think in the game he was another guy that was a little bit nervous because it was his first outing. And the things that he was doing on a consistent basis, it kind of went away because he was thinking too much. So getting him in that first game and letting him settle his feet, I think that that moving on in his next game, provided the opportunity that he plays, he'll be better because he's more confident in his ability and he knows beyond.
So you made a point that I'd love to ask you about because I watched Harrell too, and he's at Michigan, big recruit. He's long, he's got good athleticism, but yet you watch his tape and you see flashes, and he's but he's a 7th-round pick for a reason, obviously. Right. So when you say he has to learn how to become a pass rusher, what are the kinds of things you're talking about?
Well, just believing in his get-offs. A lot of young guys, they want to have multiple moves. I mean, in this game, you master one, you get two, and then as you have those two moves or those two rushes, once you master those, you incorporate more. So it's just him trusting himself, really, because the talent is always there. And just like you said, it's all about consistency. And the only time, you get consistency when you work at things diligently and you have people around you that believe in you. And we all, as a coaching staff, believe in him. We believe in where he can go, and we're just going to try to keep pouring, ourselves into him. So
that's Denard Wilson, Titans defensive coordinator, on the radio show today. And in fact, Bert, if you could do me the courtesy of dropping the Spotify link of the interview in the chat today for people who may have missed it. Some really good football insights for you to learn about not just your defense, but your defensive coordinator. Andrew Brown says, damn, Buck, get off the phone when talking to people. Rude AF. That's how I run. I'm doing a 3-hour live radio show. I got a million moving parts. I've got information on my phone from practice. I'm a professional at this point, so I can, well enough pay attention to what's going on, point guard a conversation between two expert football people, and still be able to do my job while reading what's going on my phone, because my phone is my job. So you'll get over it. Denard Wilson got over it because he understands that is a part of the way that things function. And that is not a product of rudeness, but necessity for me to be able to operate, again, a live 3-hour radio show without having a million different things in front of my face and papers on my desk and all these other things. So you'll live. So I think that I think that there is a lot of different stuff to be taken away from the Titans' approach to the pass rush. Clearly, they're just like, hey, until you suspend Arden Key's on the football team. And I guess it's tough for me to fault them for that, because this Arden Key stuff's been hanging out there for almost 3 weeks now, and there's been no movement from the league as Arden works through the appeals process. I think that there are so many different. Things that the Titans have considered, including kind of going with the options that they have on the roster. But based on talking to people, my understanding is they're going to wait till roster cuts come down. Remember Trevis Gibson, who gave you a couple of decent games, decent reps as a pass rusher last year? A lot of you wanted to see him earlier. He was a roster cut from the Chicago Bears, who was your week 1 preseason opponent, I want to say, last year. Yeah, because that's the only preseason game Levis played in as a rookie. So you have that kind of situation that's looming out there, where there will be roster cuts and there will be better players than are currently available right now that have been on NFL rosters. So I think that in particular is something to keep an eye on as we get later in the season. The solution may not come during training camp. And again, they're operating like Arden Key's on the roster until such time as they officially move on from him. He is removed essentially because of the suspension. I think that there's going to be a lot of concern about the pass rush group, and I think those concerns are viable because they do not have depth that is viable. If Harold or Jeff Simmons or Tavondre Sweat misses any extended period of time, this is going to look a lot like that 2020 defense that was struggling to get to the quarterback on third downs at a historically bad rate. So it will be pretty incumbent upon them to stay as healthy as humanly possible. But also, I still think they need to supplement that group with talent. Brandon Tyler says, real question for Buck. Would you rather ask Coach Mack about his coaching career and have to listen to the whole answer, or your alarm be Mike Keith's sack as your alarm clock for a week? And nothing against Mike Keith and the sack call, but Coach Mack, I love talking to Coach Mack. I talk to Coach Mack every Friday. I talk to Coach Mack damn near every day at practice. Coach Mack's stories are excellent. You could put Coach Mack's career on as the soundtrack for the rest of my life, and I would very much enjoy it. Curator says, has Weaver shown any improvement? He doesn't really distinguish himself. He's been just kind of what he's been. Rashad Weaver is a viable kind of platoon type player that can hold the fort for a couple of snaps, but is not going to be a full-time starter in this league based on what he's been, right? There's nothing at practice so far that seems to indicate otherwise. Now, if Arden gets suspended, they feel like it's inevitably coming, though it hasn't officially happened yet. They have not been down on Weaver, but there's really not been any discussion around Weaver. Again, he could be great in the meetings. He could be, thought of very highly by the coaching staff, and we're just not seeing on the practice field. The practice field does matter to an extent, and you've noticed, frankly, Jalen Harrell more than you've noticed Rashad Weaver. So that's kind of where we're at with all this stuff. Devin Mills says there are some spring ball players that look promising. You talk about preseason spring ball. Is that what you're specifically referencing as spring ball? But there are a couple of different players that you have. Ramon, I'm reading a different chat than I'm not sure what Bert's referencing. Ramon made a comment.
On Rashad Weaver. He was asking how he's looked in practice. And Ramon made a comment when they were doing 11 on 11 that a lot of people have made note that Rashad Weaver looks more cut, has lost a lot of weight to improve his get off.
Oh,
and
I
Ramon,
thought you were saying a cut candidate, Weaver.
no. And I should have specified that better. Just that he may have lost too much weight to hold his anchor to set the edge, because he noticed him getting washed out a lot on defense today.
Yeah, but that's been his entire career, Bert. Like he put on a ton of weight last year. The reason he looks so much different is because he put on all that weight last year to be better at it, and he still wasn't any good at it. Like he has never consistently been able to hold up in that phase of the game. And I think, from his perspective, he cut all that weight to try and be more explosive and get to the quarterback faster. But I just don't think it's been working to his benefit. He's got the body type where you think it would be much more impactful, but he was a 5th round pick for a reason.
Right. I mean, he has the perfect 5 technique on the outside of the tackle's body type, but you're right. Like, he did lose that weight to improve his get off, and I can't tell you one time I've seen him get to the quarterback first. You know what I mean? So to your point, the dividends aren't showing themselves.
I just think, I appreciate the feedback, Bert. I just think that they're going to be creative with the ways that they bring pressure beyond just winning conventionally with 4 down guys. They're going to be sending a lot of different looks, a lot of different blitzes. I think you're going to see pressure from the secondary, pressure from the linebacker group, pressure from up front. Denard Wilson is going to have to manufacture a lot of this rush. And it doesn't mean that it can't be done, right? And Weaver or Harrell or somebody who's there to clean up the sacks can be the beneficiary of that in the box score. But yeah, they're gonna blitz. I mean, they're gonna have to blitz. This is not a defense that can win with just 4 at this point, or at least right now. We will see what happens, but I think there is reason to be skeptical about that. All right, a little bit of rising and falling, stock up, stock down, whose stock rose, whose stock fell this week in sports. We'll talk about it together on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Andrew Brown says trade Weaver to the Jets and go get Hassan Reddick, plain and simple. Yeah, that's not going to work 1-to-1, but I appreciate your optimism. Kamario McFoley says we got to go with what we got. Well, you don't have to, right, Kamario? You don't have to do it that way, but you can, I guess, bide your time with what you've got, and then once roster cuts are made, make some decisions to try and scoop up people before they clear waivers and all this. They're 7th in the waiver order, right? So they'll have they'll have a pretty good pick once roster cut days come down, but you don't have to go with what you've got necessarily. It's just that seems to be the approach in the interim right now. So rising and falling, whose stock rose, whose stock fell this week in sports. Let us get into a couple of different things that we saw today, because I think there's some good stock up, stock down candidates. Right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress. Get the intel edge you need to succeed with the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. That, of course, is Gary Ashton and the Ashton team. All right, stock up Jaquan Jackson. Jaquan Jackson had a great day in joint training camp work. He continues to improve his roster stock, making plays in the return game on Saturday. They got an extended look at him doing that. They also believe that he has the ability to play for them multiple receiver positions, but he will primarily be in the slot. And today he got the better of a couple of Seahawks defensive backs. This was Jaquan Jackson after practice.
Everybody fighting for a position, from all over, it don't matter from offense or defense, but you just got to come with the mindset to just keep going.
How do you think you guys did as a whole today offensively?
I say great. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but we just got to learn from our mistakes from today and the wins that we had. How can we build off of that? We're going to watch film later and just, flush it down the toilet, and tomorrow we got to come with another mindset to try to have a great day.
For you, how much more confidence did you come in with today after that big day Saturday? Was that something that you really felt like you built off of?
I always try to be, no matter if it was a bad performance or a great performance, I always try to be the best that I can be to help the team. It takes a team to win, but everybody got to do their 111 to make a play successful.
How valuable is it to just go against different personnel out here?
Oh, yeah. It's important, just I said last week that, man, we've been going against our defense every week, and they know what we're doing. We know what they're doing. But going against another defense and seeing different guys and different techniques that they play, it really helps us. It give us a game-like scenario to see if it's unscripted. Coach calling the plays. We don't know what they call them, so we just got to hear it with the quarterback translate. The quarterback got to translate it to us and just go out there and execute versus the coverage it was. Because, in the joint practice, they can show different coverages from 2 high, then rolls to 1, and then, the nickel could blitz and the safety go back to 2. So it's a lot of stuff going on. You got to train yourself to, you got a little bit of seconds, the play clock going down, and you got to know if you got to convert or don't convert, you got to know the coverage. So there's a lot all in one. So, and sometimes you have a can, so you got to make sure if you get you one play, then you can it, you got to make sure, oh crap, what that play was. So there's a lot to go. But
it seemed like right from one-on-ones to start, he was really competitive, and you guys go 2.5 hours. Is part of the get better process the strain of a day like today?
Yeah, for sure, because normally we practice early in the morning, so by the time that 10 o'clock come, the sun come out, and you just got to find a way. That's the biggest thing I tell myself each and every day: find a way, because it's all mental. Sometimes we like to break down, but we just got to find that other edge. We still have more in the tank. You try to feel sorry for yourself, but you got to find a way playing this game of football.
It's Jaquan Jackson, who continues to improve his stock on this Titans roster as a 6th-round pick out of Tulane, and Tajay Spears' roommate right now, which has to be a pretty interesting dynamic. Stock down, I would say stock down J.J. McCarthy. It sucks. He's done for the year. He's having an MCL procedure, a meniscus procedure at this point that is going to shut him down for the year. So already one of the 6 first-round rookie quarterbacks not going to see a snap this season, having played the most in the preseason of any of the rookie quarterbacks to date. But and the Minnesota Vikings are on the Titans' schedule this year. In mid-November, they come to Tennessee. So Sam Darnold may be the quarterback for the foreseeable future. Tannehill is still out there on the free agent market. I also saw Jordan Addison went down with an injury today too for Minnesota. So they just really can't catch a break. Really sucks to see that news in particular. So done for the year, but we'll be okay eventually. We're just not going to see J.J. McCarthy in his rookie season. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Radio show tomorrow. Will Levis is on it. Make sure you tune in from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll also have Greg Cosell of NFL Films. I think Charles Davis of CBS Sports is going to stop by. And, of course, your starting quarterback and his mayonnaise perfume will be on the radio show after practice concludes. So tune in then from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We're also going to do a 615 Sessions podcast tomorrow. I haven't figured out the logistics with Bert on that just yet. But have a great rest of your evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow on 104.5 The Zone at 10 a.m.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!